right. Welcome to today's live webinar, 5 Lessons Learned Integrating an Online Sportsbook into a Land-Based Casino. My name is Joe. I will be the moderator. The Operator's Edge is our monthly live webinar series where we discuss experiences, data, and best practices gleaned from operating sportsbooks in the United States and Africa. With that, we will get started. Let's see if I can. All right. Last month, quick update on the Operator's Edge. Last month, we talked about 7 reasons to launch free-to-play sports. Conversation centered on customer acquisition, better education, and loyalty. This month, of course, we have 5 lessons learned. Next month, we'll share 3 reasons to bet on baseball for customer acquisition. And in April, looking ahead, building your database through free-to-play sports. With that, we have provided a poll for everyone to take, and it's a question about what percentage of casino rewards members bet on sports. And we'll touch on the data points that we've learned from that in the course of our presentation. With that, I'll turn it over to Chalkline CEO Daniel Kustelski and our head of iGaming, Jason Foster.
Great. Thank you so much. So we're going to do a quick start, and it's the tale of the tape. And it's just a data point that we've been looking at. It's a comparison of the parlay bets as a percentage of the total handle. And what we're seeing from this graph is the difference in sports bettors and the personas from Nevada to New Jersey. I think probably in Nevada we've got a much sharper betting base, and in New Jersey maybe a little less so. Less experienced, less sharp. But as an operator, there are certainly some things that you can do providing a product that will accommodate those that are looking for trying to turn one unit into 10 or 15 or 1,000, rather than just the straight Team A versus Team B bets. So just thought this was interesting and wanted to share this one particular data point with everybody.
Yeah, and the New Jersey numbers look a lot like the rest of the sports betting world.
Right. So let's get started. Set the stage for the 5 lessons. Quick thanks to Sun International, and we're just going to give a little bit of background on what Sun International was thinking, back in 2012 in the lead up to the acquisition, and this is from their annual report. What they saw was a growth market in in South Africa, and that was sports betting. It was certainly an additive gambling form and complementary to what they were currently offering, and a little bit younger demographic. The average age on our sports book at VoltBet was 28, 29 years old, versus the average age of their MVG program, which was their loyalty program, which was well above 40. And then, they were looking at mobile and online as the future of gaming, and they really wanted to get some experience in that. And the 4 years after the acquisition in 2013, you saw a considerable growth in the entire market. So they were looking at sports betting, and this is the stats on the next 4 years, and these numbers well exceeded PwC's expectations over the next 4 years. 3 or 4 years down the line, mobile is still a massive part of that SunBet offering. And that also coincides with live and play. Now, back in 2012 and 2013, live and play wasn't as big of a percentage as the total handle for Jason and I running SunBet, but certainly that's the case now, and that dovetails nicely with mobile as a large percentage as well. Now, if we just bring it home real quickly, you can see the U.S. on the left-hand side, and just real quick, I think we're seeing a lot of parallels, between maybe what Sun International was looking at from a South African perspective and from a South African market, and what's happening here in the U.S. That 3% is really a 3% of the net revenues out of Nevada. If we were to do it as casino gambling as a whole, it would be just a wafer thin line there, right above 0%. But as we see, over the next 3 to 5 years, if it grows towards that global average here in the United States, that's a $6 or $7 billion industry. And in New Jersey, we're already seeing the January numbers are 8% of the net revs in New Jersey. Sports betting accounts for 8% of the net revs in New Jersey.
Yeah, if you offer the right products and services to fit the market, then there's also no reason why sports betting share can't be closer to that UK number.
Right. And in South Africa, we're seeing it being closer to 20% already.
Yeah. And this is the retail picture. So retail has continued to grow in South Africa. Sports betting growth hasn't all been online and mobile. Sports betting was legalized in South Africa in 1995, but the market still hasn't fully matured, unlike the UK, which has been seeing a decline in retail for several years. The growth opportunities in the US will eventually migrate from retail to mobile.
Excellent. So let's dive into the 5 lessons learned, integrating the sportsbook. Lesson number 1, it relates back to our poll question, which is casino bettors or sports bettors? And no better place to start than what are the percentage of casino loyalty program members that were going to bet on sports, and that 65% on the upper right-hand side was corroborated also by just general stats, nationwide stats that asked the country, if you go into a casino and you gamble, will you also bet on sports? So that 65 is pretty high number, and I think when I relay that to most people here in the U.S., they're pretty surprised. So your sports bettors, or a majority of them, are going to come from your own database if you're running a casino, and they're pretty lucrative customers. In 2017, some of the offshore guys were pegging the value of a sports bettor at about $1,000 per customer, and that's on sports betting alone. Caesars, started to talk about the ancillary effects of having sports books in New Jersey and Mississippi, and talking about a 10 to 20% volume lift in restaurants and bars, not just including special events, obviously around the March Madness and what have you. Jay Root, our good friend Jay Root at MGM, talks about the same thing when he was talking at the Sports Betting USA conference about the ancillary revenues that generates from the race book and the sports book. And then lastly, this just recently came out. Eilers and Krajcek do a fantastic job of providing research and data points, and we're a data-driven company. It's one of our core values. And when we look at DraftKings in particular, and after having launched their sports book and really pushed mobile back in mid 2018, 1 month after they launched their casino products, they've already got a 3% market share. So clearly there is a cross-sell between sports bettors and online casino players.
Yeah, when we did a roadshow to Sun International Properties after launching Sunbet, we met plenty of VIP loyalty members who had pockets full of tickets from competitor sportsbooks. Yes,
and also there was a great quote by the CEO of DraftKings, and he was talking about how when he was being interviewed by Darren Ravel at Sports Betting USA, and Darren said, well, what were some of the reasons why you guys went out as quickly as you did? And he said, well, look, we need to protect our players. We know that they're going to go find a sports book, and why not offer them something as quickly as they can. Now, what we also understand is that most sports bettors in take Europe and Africa, they've got on average 3.5 books that they've deposited and bet through. It's just really a function of being one of those books. People won't single-handedly just have one sports book, but if you can be one of those 3, you're certainly heading in the right direction. Okay, buy-in on the C-suite and across the organization. It's really about getting organizational buy-in. Yes, at the top, we had great buy-in, but also just on the boots on the ground and going down to the properties was critically important for us. But on weekly meetings at with CEO and CFO and CMO, and just talking a lot about just how the business looks and how it acts and how it behaves from a financial perspective and from a marketing perspective. We talked about things like whales. If a big whale comes in and they're used to spending 1 million units, on roulette, and then they want to go place a bet in the sports book. How do you deal with limits? Because it's a slightly different risk, a sports book than maybe the roulettes or the slots, and just dealing with a lot of those hardcore operational issues was important at a high level for us to make those decisions, and then share some of that thinking down at the property level, because they had 13 properties. Most important probably for me was just that integration on the marketing side. It was group integration. Sunbet was integrated at a group level, and then we also went down to the property level, and every single one of their digital assets Sunbet was a part of and a fixture for, and that's really that was really critical for us across the organization.
For me, it was the stability and scale provided by our corporate IT team and the quick integrations we were able to do with loyalty systems. Sun International retail loyalty members who had never had an online account with Sun only needed their loyalty account number and one additional confirmation data point to complete a sign up with Sunbet.
Excellent. So once you integrate loyalty with your sports gaming products, whether that's free to play or real money, you're going to see results. It did take us about 2 years, to permeate, the land-based casino group. And the nooks and crannies and pockets of customers. But once we did that, 40% of our new customers, after about 2 years, we had about 40% of our new customers were coming through the loyalty program, and they accounted for 70% of our revenues. So from an acquisition perspective, it wasn't maybe as many people, but certainly it was the volume that we were able to capture.
Yeah, we saw an immediate boost. Bets from existing VaultBet clients doubled in the month after we switched them over to Sunbet with the loyalty program.
So then it's about vendors. So software providers, trading, front-end development. When we did this in 2013, it was pretty much a turnkey solution for Sun International. I just venture to say right now it's about selecting excellent vendors and really pushing them to innovate. When you look at Jason and I just got back from ICE a couple of weeks ago, which is a big gaming conference in London. And there are some amazing vendors out there that can do some really specialized work for U.S. casino groups and tracks and anybody who's looking to launch a sports book in the U.S. And it's really about just making sure that while, yes, right now in February of 2019, 9 months after PASPA or 8 months after PASPA has been repealed, the products might look quite vanilla. That's fine, but a year from now, it's really about finding those clients that buy into what your vision is and finding out how they can tailor this particular product to fit your customers and to be a value added opportunity for the group of casinos or for the casino itself.
Before Sun, we had a single vendor integration, and that was Sportradar. We built everything ourselves. My advice is don't make that mistake. Rather worry about the customer experience and the technology behind it. Sunbet made the move to world-class suppliers, Bead and Canby. Very little is done internally now. When they wanted free-to-play games, they came back to us and simply told us to integrate with Canby. They said focus on the inflection point between free-to-play and real money sports betting. We built the integration to funnel players from a simple free-to-play game directly into the Canby bet slip.
Great. And we're still doing that. So even 5 years later, we're still mining that loyalty database and still cross-selling, sports betting and free-to-play games into the sports book. Number 5 is get moving. Strategy is great. Lots of plans are great. But I think that that starting now is probably prudent. If we look at the map of the United States, and this is this is hard to keep updated. I think the AGA do a pretty good job of getting the color coding right. But I think the last I heard, either from the AGA or Eilers and Krychek, was that 25 states have approximately 80 plus bills in them in order to legalize sports betting. And I'm not saying that all of those are going to happen, but it just feels like it's more of a function of when, not if. And getting started right now is critically important, even if you can't take a legal wager in your particular state. What we did with Tropicana was quite a few months before they launched their sports book. We offered a free-to-play front door, regionalized sports, wide variety of sports to accommodate a lot of different types of people, and start to understand the sports bettor that sits inside of the Tropicana Atlantic City databases and patrons that come in. And then you can see on the lower right-hand corner, tying that into their digital assets with Tropicana Casino, which is real money. Everybody's probably hosted a Super Bowl party. Great opportunity for these massive events to start to engage with your customers, start to understand what sports they like, what teams they like, start to build those personas. But also it's just a great time to start to collect data. And the Super Bowl was one of those opportunities where you invite a bunch of people and you can engage with them on free-to-play games, or however it is on polls or various ways to start to understand your customers and their appetite for sports betting. March Madness is coming up. Certainly integrate your free-to-play sports games into the live events there. There's going to be plenty of parties and plenty of events and the big, this is along the lines of those big calendar events. Certainly an opportunity for the casinos to get started now around these big events. But also they can look at maybe, possibly looking at localized teams. So if you're sitting in Oklahoma, it's a possibility that you would look at the Thunder or maybe the College World Series as opportunities that are regionally specific. And that wraps up the 5 lessons. Just wanted to show everybody what VoltBet.com looked like prior to the integration. Our average age was 28 or 29. So for those of you that are cringing at some of the colors, it was pretty aggressive, yes, but it worked really, really well for us prior to that integration. And then, what does it look like now? And it's an integral asset into that casino group at Sun International.
Yeah, you can see our free-to-play Sunbet 6 game on the banner there, but we don't just do sports games. We did a royal wedding game that was targeted at female loyalty members. For me, that was a big mistake. I had to spend Saturday afternoon watching the wedding with my wife and daughters. We also did an NGC Nedbank Golf Challenge game, which is hosted at Sun City. The objective there was to leverage Sun sponsorship and acquire customers for Sunbet among golf fans.
Great. So just to wrap up the 5 lessons that we learned, again, just the setup was that Sun International really did see a growing sports betting market and industry in a demographic that was appealing to them, and that was slightly different than what they had in their current casino database. They wanted to understand mobile and online gaming, and so that was the scene that was set. When we look at those lessons learned, the casino patrons, that is going to be a massive opportunity for everybody, and there's probably going to be a little bit of an arms race in locations where that some casino patrons are going to have loyalty cards at a few different land-based operations, and so getting in there and getting identifying those customers and starting that relationship on a sports level is pretty important, and doing that pretty quickly. C-suite buy-in is critically important, but also just going down and going to those properties and talking to the people with boots on the ground and understanding they've got a good feel for what those casino patrons are looking for and their flavor and what they like. So it's not just at the top, but it's all the way down and integrating sports betting into the fabric of the form of entertainment that group is providing. Again, when we integrated the loyalty program, that was a huge move, and we saw huge growth afterwards. What we also saw on the from the casino, from the loyalty base that signed up to the Sportsbook, we compared the 6 months prior to them joining the Sportsbook till 6 months after, and the 6 months after they had a 50% uptick in spend on the casino floor. So building that loyalty and integrating that loyalty and integrating the Sportsbook into that mix is not just going to benefit the Sportsbook in its isolation, but also in a bunch of different ways. Vendors are pretty sharp these days, and they're able to bend and flex pretty well. It might take a little bit of time, but certainly look to those vendors, and if you're uncomfortable with a trading team, and hiring a trading team specific to your particular property or your particular group, that you can outsource that, and you can really drive a lot of opportunity through that relationship. And then you can worry about maybe if you want to bring it in later or bring it in in-house at a later date. That might make sense, but certainly look out there at the vendors and really try and piece together your sports book in a meaningful way, and then get moving as quickly as you can. States look to be legalizing sports betting. There's going to be quite a few. I think I've already come out on Twitter saying that it'll be over and under 19 and a half states by the end of 2019. But yeah, we've already got 10 that are legal, and quite a few more that are going to come on board here soon. So just before we go into the mass questions, I get this question all the time: where are my customers going to come from? And I know that I've been talking about that, but I'm just going to hand it over to Joe, and he's going to talk a little bit about the owned, earned, and paid media, and just maybe dig into that, into how you go to your your various patrons, unknown patrons on social media, people that are on email databases or snail mail databases, and how you bring them into the fold. So I'm going to hand it over to Joe.
Thanks, Daniel. So I think as we look at the opportunity, I mean, much of what we're discussing today, and many of the opportunities that casinos we know and work with are looking at are starting over on the left, and it's the most sensible, low-cost place to start. You own your email database. You own your loyalty database. Now, you might have distribution across your patrons, rather your loyalty program members may have multiple cards, but you have a direct relationship with them. And then, of course, your known guests. As we move to the right, there are some additional opportunities. I mean, certainly you have many website visitors and organic social visitors, but the real opportunity is to convert those anonymous online visitors to email addresses or mobile numbers so that you can really begin a conversation with them. Looking in the retail section, we see a tremendous opportunity to capture data from what we call unknown patrons, and so those are just the people that are sitting in your sports bars, watching games, and finding ways to incentivize them to contribute an email address or a mobile number, and so that again you can start a conversation with them. And then moving even further to the right, I mean, certainly live events, live sporting events. I think the numbers are pretty clear. 3 to 5 years from now, every single one of your or 65% of your guests of your loyalty program will be betting on sports somewhere. And certainly live experiential events that have a data capture component, whether it's a ticketed event or you use free-to-play games or you have other mechanisms to pull an email address or a mobile number, present a real opportunity. And then, of course, over on the far right, the last Jason mentioned the golf tournament sponsorship that Sun International has done, and we built a free-to-play game that allows them to take the sponsorship dollars that are being deployed and capture more value. So any casino that has a sponsorship associated with the sports team, there are specific tactics and opportunities that can be applied here to build database and create more value from an existing sponsorship. So, Daniel or Jason, anything to add to that?
I would just say that what's happening in New Jersey. There are companies out there that are selling leads and selling new depositing customers for that online sports book, and they're looking at, operators are looking at spending $250 to $350 per new depositing customer, and I just venture to say that number is gonna rack up when you're starting to bring in tens of thousands of customers. And so rather look at that owned and earned media and try and keep those marketing costs down to acquire those customers, because you already have a relationship with them. It's just a function of identifying, engaging, maybe even educating some of those customers around sports betting. I suppose we'll take questions now.
And so we have a couple of questions. So the first question is, from your experience, what would you say where do most online sports betting operators struggle to find customers, or what's the biggest challenge when it comes to acquiring new customers? Let's just say you open a new sports book.
Well, if they're online only, and there are skins, there are operators right now that that don't have a land-based casino component to it because they've just bought a skin in New Jersey, and I think the skins, there are probably going to be a few other states that allow for skins. And the challenge that exists then is that you don't have this large pool of engaged patrons at a land-based casino, and then it's just a function of going and finding opportunities. I just read about one of them that partnered with a golf company to promote their online sports book, to the patrons that attend this particular golf company. But I just also venture to say that, that it's gonna be an expensive process, and typically, what we see in Europe is the sponsorship of sports teams and leagues, in order to create awareness for that particular brand, and then leverage the sports teams and leagues in various creative ways.
Yeah, my experience in my experience in South Africa is, particularly while it's still quite heavily retail focused, is that the operators with a big retail footprint do have a big advantage. That is probably less so in more developed markets like the UK. Where a big online only operator can dominate the market, but then it comes down to the products that you offer, because it becomes quite competitive.
Great. And you mentioned road shows and email campaigns. How long did it take you to fully engage the Sun MVG rewards program participants?
I would say I would say it took us at least a year to really gain some traction, and probably a critical mass it took 2. They're still mining that database even 5 and 6 years after the acquisition. So it's an ongoing pursuit. People are coming into that environment at various levels and degrees of knowledge of sports betting. And the casinos, are doing a pretty good job of pushing the sports betting product. But it's nothing. It's not an immediate conversion, and it takes some hard work, not just digitally, but as Jason was talking about, as we went on road shows to the various locations.
Yeah, I can back that up 100%. Although there was some immediate uptake on it, a lot of those MVG members need multiple engagements before they make the decision. And as Dan says, it's still a big part of what a big acquisition point for Sun is the MVG database.
And some of the challenges that we experienced was just simply, how good is the email database, or how good is the information on these databases? As I talk to American casinos, just trying to figure out what percentage of their database do they have email addresses for rather than physical addresses, and these are challenges that are going to maybe slow down that process. If a casino is sending out weekly or monthly emails around their gaming events, and they're getting an open rate of 10% and a click-through rate of 1 or 2%, it takes a while to hit the entire database and to get them fully engaged. So collecting clean data, consistently collecting clean data is important, but it does take some time.
So we have one final question here about what differentiates the best third-party suppliers and vendors.
Geez, I mean that's a large question. I think I don't mean to answer it with another question, but it is really a function of probably risk. Like when Sun International, when they bought us, we did everything for them. We were a going concern. We had customers, we had trading, we had the software, we had the operational know-how, the marketing know-how. We were a turnkey solution for them. And since then, they've taken over some of those duties. Certainly, marketing is one of those that melds pretty well into the group. The software stack, going to additional vendors, but I can't help but think that those companies that might offer a more turnkey solution, there are already some interesting case studies out there where the casino brought in a particular vendor, and maybe that vendor didn't do various aspects. Maybe they didn't do some of the marketing, or maybe they didn't do some of the risk management, and that's a challenge for a casino that's really never been involved in sports betting before to have to manage themselves. So my recommendation would really be to find turnkey solutions for your sports betting, at least in the next kind of 18 to 24 months, and learn a lot about that operation and how the group or the casino itself can then tailor make that package, and it might not need as many vendors in 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, I think from my point of view, we built the VaultBet system from scratch and tried to do everything. The level of competition has effectively moved. There are tons of really top platforms out there. Platforms like SB Tech, Candy, Bead, where the platform pretty much provides everything you need to run your sportsbook, but they also provide an opportunity for you to integrate any vendor any third-party vendor or game that you think will give you an advantage, and effectively the competition has moved to that level. There are a bunch of pretty, very, very good mature platforms that you can choose from, and the competition sits in which of those third-party games you pull in. There was one particular supplier that I spoke to at ICE who had their own in-house live dealer game or live dealer system, but they'd integrated 5 others into their system, so that any of their clients had a choice of 6 different live dealer suppliers to choose from. Similar situation with virtual sports. There are 3 or 4 really good ones, all competing in their specific focused area. And I definitely think that's where your choices are now.
Great. And with that, we are running on time, so we will wrap up. Following this presentation, we will send out a slide, the slide deck that we reviewed today, to all participants, and answers to any additional questions that we did not have time for today. Next month, on March 21st, we will review 3 reasons to bet on baseball for customer acquisition, and just a little bit about Chalkline. We provide the free-to-play sports betting games for customer acquisition and engagement. We work with a number of great folks, some of which we referred to today. And of course, if you would like to read the 5 lessons learned, we'll share that in a link immediately following this presentation. So until next time, thank you very much for attending, and we'll talk to you next month.
Thank you.